This is Digital Breakthroughs, putting the spotlight on cutting-edge digital marketing strategies for your business. With your host, CEO of industry-recognized digital marketing and social media agency, National Positions, Bernard May.
Welcome, everybody, to a new Digital Breakthroughs podcast. This time, I am being joined by my co-host, Matt Erickson. Matt Erickson is the Director of Marketing at National Positions, and super excited to be talking to you guys about trends for 2021. In fact, as December comes along, I always get really excited about the prospect of thinking about what's going to happen next year and all the exciting things that have happened in 2020. Of course, we've all been impacted very badly by the pandemic, and that has had some major impacts on digital marketing. In fact, they've had some very positive impacts. So there's a silver lining to everything. And we've just come off the 4-day weekend where we've had Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and we've seen that Americans are spending a record amount online, $10.8 billion, in fact, on Cyber Monday, which is 15% up from last year, according to the Wall Street Journal. So some really, really big numbers. In fact, $184 billion was spent this year versus $142 billion last year. So, wow. Okay, some very, very big numbers expected to be spent online during this holiday period. And so let me just ask Matt, what are you thinking? We're going to start with the overall trends and then maybe dive down into some of the more detailed areas. I know we won't be able to cover everything. We are going to be doing a webinar on these trends in detail, but just want to highlight some of the most exciting areas. So overall, anything that you're looking at for 2021, Matt?
Yeah, for sure. And like you were saying, that 2020 alone, it kind of took, the silver lining was for digital marketing because, a lot of businesses that kept waiting. Well, maybe this will clear up. Maybe things will go back to normal. Maybe they will. It kind of forced, marketers like us and also businesses to really they were really forced to look at right now. What can we do right now? What can we affect right now? So that's one thing I think in previous years, we've been able to look at what happened the last 3 years and where it was trending. And we could kind of make our inferences off of that. And this year, just kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, just kind of shook all that up and went, that was great. That information was good 6 months ago, but what's happening now? So it definitely has changed our thinking and also our recommendations to brands. I mean, a couple of the overarching ones, again, we don't want to dive too deep, but omni-channel is, we as an agency have talked about that for years. And for those who are not in the know, omni is just more than one. A lot of people, they said, we're going to do, our strategy is Google advertising. It's like, no, that's a tactic, which is fine. You can have wonderful tactics and you can have many tactics to build a strategy within that. But what do you do after a form is filled out? How do you follow up with your clientele? What if your carts they're abandoned? So all of that is like, okay, how do you bring those clients back? How do you nurture those clients? How do you build trust faster? All of those things start building, here's a small strategy, another strategy, and builds a cohesive model. So you can actually convert more at a higher level, hopefully faster. Because I think what next year is definitely going to show is how important lifetime value is, as opposed to just, we got 20% higher clicks in Q4's campaign. It's like, well, that's fine, but what does that mean for you long term? Because as more people move online to shop, I know I've done a lot of my shopping online. I was talking to my dad for about half an hour this morning on how to find the right kind of tablet for he's not going to watch this. That's okay. What kind of tablet he's going to get for my mom for her, for Christmas. And it's one of these where I just want to say, download the Amazon app and scan it, and you can read the reviews and, reduce your friction buying faster. But all of that, from a brand standpoint, is really gonna, it's gonna mean that they need to leverage omni-channel strategies. in 2021. I mean, and since omnichannel could have SEO and PPC and reputation management, or, could have any variety of things, but there really needs to be a soup to nuts cohesive strategy for attracting attention, converting attention, and retaining that to not only, build your brand, but also to just get the highest lifetime value you can out of every customer. That's overarching.
Yeah. I have noticed over the last couple of years, but especially this year, that our clients that are doing an omni-channel, many-channel approach are being a whole lot more successful than those that are just doing SEO or just doing paid search or just doing marketing automation and single channel. And this goes for, if you just, even think about offline, the best and most successful brands are out there were advertising on radio and TV and billboards and all sorts of different channels. So you assume that you do the same thing with omnichannel, with online. And so it really is trying to understand where your clients are right now, which channels they're on. I mean, SEO is kind of a foundational tactic, and almost everybody needs it. But then the other questions are your clients on YouTube? Are they on Facebook? Are they on TikTok? Or they're where do you find them? And the answer to that is you don't find them in one place. You find them in multiple places. It's really understanding the personas and where these clients gather, and to try and advertise in all these places, because there are a lot of enduring and ongoing ideas on advertising that exist and persist for the long term. And those are things like frequency. If you see the brand showing up, you're on Google and you see the brand show up. You're on YouTube, you see the brand show up. You're on Facebook again, you see this brand show up. You start to realize that this is someone that you probably want to do business with. And then, of course, with retargeting, retargeting through email, retargeting through social, and even on paid search, it is really important for clients to see you many, many times. And even when I look at local businesses as well, showing up in the maps, showing up in paid search, showing up in the organic results, these types of things give you a lot of credibility and end up not doubling your success, but sometimes tripling and quadrupling and having this exponential impact.
Yeah. And I think because all of these things, I think, if someone's not in marketing all the time, they can kind of glaze over sometimes, because they may hear a lot of this, a lot, because they know that's the what. Everything you're saying is right on, like that's the what. But the why with all of these things, which we've seen really skyrocket as far as importance, is the omni-channel, the local marketing, the retargeting. It's not just, it is to stay in front of the client, but it's also to give them a personalized experience, and it's to give them a more friction-free experience. But the big word is experience.
Right.
That's what people want. They need. It's not just they want, because I think some people hear this and they go, you're just trying to sell. It's like, yes, true. But the whole point is people want to feel some sort of connections to the brands that they're buying. It could be very deep. It could be very light. But, I just moved. Bernard is in Westlake Village, California. I moved to Nashville. So I had to get a bunch of, new furniture. So I found myself searching on Wayfair and searching on Amazon and searching on Overstock. And it used to be you'd see remarketing, personalized remarketing within days. I was seeing it within hours, which I had never seen it happen that quickly. As soon as I'd leave, okay, I'm talking within an hour, I'd go to Instagram and I'd see, there are counter stools that I was looking for, the ones I was looking at in retargeting ads. And I didn't feel, I used to, as a marketer, feel very, man, they're just relentless. But I'm like, but they're showing me exactly what I wanted and what I was looking for. So I actually was going back to that site more often, and I did buy a new bed from that site. So I think that's all of these things, and it's showing in the end of 2020. It's going to be so important in 2021. Whatever those strategies are, that you're elevating the experience and the brand to customer experience to make them, to make your brand feel like you are a solution. You are like, hey, you had a problem. Here's a solution you were looking at. What more do you need for us to close that solution for you? And it worked on me, and I'm in the industry. So yeah, everything Bernard's saying, I think really at the end comes down to what kind of experience are you giving your customers, and are you able to give them an experience that they're going to feel at home with, they're going to feel connected to, and they're going to want to come back to over and over and over.
I wanted to move on to another trend that like really fascinated me. And I think this is something that, you know, we're really going to be focusing on as an agency. And I just wanted to dive into another one of those that were in our report. This one has to do with paid search, and it has to do with the value of your data. So one of the areas that I think when we were polling our clients and others, they're saying, one of the most important things is that we have quality leads. And so one of the areas that I feel we have a great opportunity is to feed back data into offline data back into the models. As we move more and more into machine learning and into artificial intelligence, these models work off data.
Yeah.
And the companies that are going to really thrive, besides the one that are using omni-channel, obviously we spoke about that, but the ones that are going to take their data and combine it with the models that Google and Bing and Facebook and these others, but especially Google's opening up and allowing us to provide the data. So let's just say you're a plumber, or you're doing home services, or anyone else, a lawyer who's got leads that are coming in. You want to get more of these great leads that are very similar. Like, so I know as a plumber, let's just take that example, that there's a particular area or a particular type of person or a particular situation. You can take that data of all of your clients that you have that have turned into bigger money-making opportunities for your company, and you can feed that all the way back into Google and basically tell Google, I want more of the same.
Yeah.
So this is like a huge opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity, and it's interesting because, and for those who may not be in the know, when we're saying, offline, that's anything that if you're doing your digital, spot, but you also have a retail location. So how are people acting if they are still trying to go to your, your retail location? What do those customers look like? And feeding that back into your online data. But I think that that's something that's been very elusive for a long time. People go, okay, if someone is still doing, I don't know why most people will be doing print advertising, but if they're doing that, okay, it's very hard to measure that. But then, and then you have digital where you can get so much data, you can be overwhelming at times. So it's being able to marry parts of what's going on, in the physical world, and then take like, okay, yeah, what do those customers look like? Like, do they match the age ranges and groups that are acting on our PPC advertising, our Google advertising, our Facebook advertising online? And finding ways to marry those two together just enriches what you're doing online, and can also enrich how people what their experience is offline. It can get pretty quick, but just starting to be able to implement that is huge. And especially right now, 2020 is, we talked about it before, but it has changed. For all intents and purposes, it's supercharged what was already happening. So people were thinking about buying more online. They went, well, that's the option. But there may be, I know that, for example, at least at this time, LA has kind of gone back under a lockdown. I don't know if all of California has, but LA has, at least that's what I've read. Out here in Nashville, it's a bit of a mix. You can pretty much go wherever you want to locally if you're masked up and you're careful and all of that. So different places are going to act in different ways. So that can also, exactly what Bernard's saying, you may go, we have to market this way in California, but this way in the Midwest. So it lets you take that marketing investment and get really granular with what's going to give you the highest return across demographics and geographics and how customers are interacting with your brand and customer psychology.
You know, there's so many practical tips. I mean, our show is all about being practical.
Absolutely.
Your data is really, really important. So when you're bringing a sale in, tracking how it came in and combining that into your CRM, and then, you know, just getting as much of an overlay of your information as possible is absolutely key to you being successful. So this is really something that I think as we move into 2021, everybody needs to be cognizant of. But I wanted to, so that was, you know, as I was going through the trends, that was the one that really struck me as something that could have a really easy and massive impact on anybody who's doing lead generation. What were you thinking? What kind of struck you as one of the trends that were like, wow?
On the data side specifically?
Just in general.
Just in general, I think what I'm kind of seeing across, whether it's, I'm not going to go into all of them, but whether it's video or whether it's Facebook or whether it's Instagram or, you know, whatever it's going to be, is because I know that in the end of Q2, Google said e-commerce grew by like 44% just in that quarter. So I'm sure that's continued, maybe not to that level, but it's definitely continued. And that is people may be moving more, you know, to digital, but they still want answers quickly. So it used to be before, like, oh, if I need something, they could spend a couple weeks researching it if they want to. Well, now brands have really had to buckle down and say, what information do they need right now? Do they need faster to help them convert, you know, quicker? And also, how do you go direct? I mean, we all know Amazon is the elephant that everyone can see in the room, and there is a time and a place, you know, to use Amazon, but that can possibly also eat away at profits for brands. So something that I'm seeing is we're seeing a ton of brands that are opening new e-commerce sites, new Shopify sites, new BigCommerce sites, you know, but they may not really know how to. They think just opening up a store and then putting their product on, the job is done. But they're going to have to learn very quickly that if they make a brand video, just orienting it vertically as opposed to horizontally can be a make or break with a customer. And most people just don't think of things at that kind of granular level. So I think when I'm looking at, you know, conversion data, if there's videos that are watched, and if a brand just is comparing apples to oranges, but they don't know it, and they have one video that's oriented this way and one that's oriented this way, and they just go, oh, the horizontal video is getting fewer views than the vertical video, so the vertical one's better. Well, it could just be that the vertical one is vertical and it's easier to watch.
Yeah.
So really getting contextual with how you're presenting your brand and how you are reducing any friction points is something that I think a lot of smaller brands and even medium brands are just starting to understand, but they need to understand that way, way faster. If you're not offering enough payment options on your site, if you don't have secure payment, you know, on your site, these are all things that can make people go, you know what, I'm just going to go to Amazon because I've bought stuff from there and I can trust them.
Yeah, so you brought up so many points, and one, I think, an overarching, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but one of the overarching themes is that yes, machine learning and AI are becoming more and more important, but marketing overall is becoming so much more complex. And you know, so there's, like, you brought up video examples and you brought up SEO examples and you mentioned Amazon, and it's like, wow, this is mind-boggling. So in fact, what we did late in 2020 is we came up with a framework so that you can actually work through in a very structured way how to tackle your marketing. Because as you're moving into multiple channels, as machine learning and AI becomes more complex, as you're combining data together, all sorts of things which we don't want to make this sound daunting, but
Yeah.
there's actually it's kind of easy. You can actually, there is a model that you can follow from soup to nuts of like how to be successful online. And so we designed this to be like, okay, well, start with your plan. What is your strategy? Who are you going after? All the way through, and you mentioned conversion, all the way through to like, how do you drive the traffic and where are the different individuals where your ideal customers hanging out so you can get to them. We mentioned that in the beginning. And then how do you convert them? And, video obviously comes into that. But and then how do you retarget them? And then the most important thing, which a lot of people don't think about, which is like, who are your most valuable clients? And those are the people that have already purchased from you. Those are the low-hanging fruit. Go after those ones by using email marketing, by remarketing to them, by reaching out, by doing an incredible job. And when we think of digital marketing, I think you shouldn't think of it on its own. You have to think about, people do live in a real world. They're not living online. Yeah. So customer service is still really important. Pricing is like absolutely key. Yeah. And that user experience. Okay, so when we talk about user experience, we're talking about user experience online. Like, what does it feel like when people come to your website? And, there are things like chatbots and other ways of making sites friendlier that we talked about in our 2020 trends. Mm-hmm. But as we move into 2021, the personal touch is still really important. And I think as I was delving into, the success of Amazon and Jeff Bezos, I was listening to a talk that he gave recently. And the number one thing that have made Amazon so successful is putting the customer first. And I see that going into 2021, this is going to not change. You just have to think about that from a digital standpoint. At least that's where we come from at National Positions, because that's our world that we live in. Yeah. But what is the experience on your website? What is the content like on your website? What are you speaking to people in a certain way? When you talk about content, you mentioned a video, vertical, horizontal. Well, hey, if you're on Instagram, you want the video to be rendered a certain way. If you're on YouTube, you want it another way. Make it easy for clients. Make it the best possible experience as we go into 2021. Make sure, and I know this is another area and it sounds really techy, but there's something called Core Web Vitals, which is coming out in May of 2021. So Google talked about this idea about site speed. Site speed is like really, really imperative. No one wants to wait around on their mobile device for anything to load anymore. It needs to be like instantaneous. Yeah. And so they're pressuring everybody to make sure that sites load really, really fast.
Yeah. And I think with what you just said, one thing that, we've talked about, you and I have talked about, and it's such a simple little idea, but it does kind of help clear the cloudy waters with all of this. Cause again, if, like you said, it can get daunting very, very easily. But the one thing that's kind of become our go-to in the end of Q3 and Q4 is, I used to always say, well, I want to say what I always said, but is what's the goal? What's the goal? And it's not just like the goal is more, that's not what we mean. But like Bernard was saying, if someone comes to your website and let's say you sell phone cases, you sell cases for your phone, let's say. Well, what's the goal? It's to show them that, but our goal is to show them that our product is, we're going to keep them better protected and better this and better this. Okay. So if that is your main goal, and your goal is to, with that, get them to look at a phone case cover that's going to match their device, well, you need to make sure that that goal is throughout the homepage on your website. And you don't have at the beginning, we build the best this, get our newsletter. And then you have like 15 different things that they can do on the site that can distract them from your goal as a company, which is, I want them to look at their phone, look at a case, look at a device, and I want them to purchase. So it can be very hard as a business owner or a marketer to go, well, all of this stuff I spent all this time on, I don't actually need because it's detracting from the goal. And this can be on a landing page. My goal is to make people fill out this form. my goal on this homepage is to get them to watch this video, So it's really, if you can, I think any campaign you're trying to do, whether it's email, the goal is to get them either to respond, book an appointment, or maybe that's it. Maybe your only two goals. Is everything you're doing driving towards that singular goal in whatever marketing you're doing? And that will help you figure out where you're going.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that, and I think for the most part, you're talking about like, well, your goals, and I want to turn that just a little bit on its head and say, well, machine learning and AI, this has been a trend for the last 5-6 years, that more and more of machine learning and AI are becoming central. But what it's doing as well, and I think Google is at the forefront of this, Facebook a little bit as well, but Google definitely, at the end of the day, it's all about the user's experience. So if you put the user number one, so I'll give an example on that website. So you're talking about a case for your cell phone. People are at different stages in the buying cycle, and Google understands that. Some people are just like, I need some kind of protection for my cell phone. They're like trying to figure out what they want. Then some people are like deciding which company, and then finally you get down to like, pushing people to purchase the product or sign up or whatever the goal is for that particular product. But at the end of the day, it's really making sure that you answer the question at the point of the need, or kind of marrying the need of that visitor to the content on your website.
Yeah.
And, this is so exciting because it does. I remember just a few years ago, we would say to people, make sure that your meta description is so-and-so characters long, and make sure that you have this. And there were these overarching rules that we could kind of throw out, but those don't exist anymore. Everything now is really really focused on whatever industry you're in, whatever product people are looking for. It's so incredibly complex now, and that's what machine learning has done, is that it can get down to extremely granular level, that if you're looking at, say, a DUI lawyer in Los Angeles versus a DUI lawyer in Buffalo, New York, it could be quite different. And the content and the needs and the forms and the user experience could be in many ways very similar, but also could diverge a little bit. And that's where the power of all this massive amount of data. So my message really is, make sure customer is first, and that what you're doing is, I think people started out with these websites were all, first of all, they were like a online brochure. And now they've come to a point where it's moved so much into like, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? Back to that Jeff Bezos thing about like, what does the customer really care about when it comes to your product? I think that's a message. One of the big messages for 2021.
Yeah, it's what they care about, not what you care about. Which it's exactly right. And to flip that, and you're right. And that has to go with what you were talking about, the different parts of the funnel. Your website is not just a billboard. That may be, awareness and attraction. You may get them there, but then you have to guide them down that funnel by solving their pain points. Now, you may know, for example, that you have the best technology, or you have the best material, and it was organically sourced and ethically which is great. That may be fantastic, and that's great for your mission statement. But a customer may want to know, if I drop this from 6 feet, will it break? Am I going to protect my $1,000 investment? If it does break, do I have a guarantee? They want to know that your product's going to be, or for them, it's going to be, work better. Maybe it's going to be more affordable. If they're going to give it to a loved one, that it's not going to break their device. Those are the maybe very rudimentary, but sometimes you got to get rudimentary to go, what do they care about? And what do they care about now? Again, what's going on right now? Not, maybe the the whole idea of having, I'm not downing anyone because, you know, having, let's just say a case that was ethically sourced and vegan. I think it's probably a thing. You can probably Google that and find that. That may have mattered more 3 years ago than now, because maybe customers are trying to make their device last longer now because they don't want to spend that, you know. So you're absolutely right. You know, you need to flip around and get out of your own head as to what you think matters and tackle what matters to them.
And then I want to bring up, and maybe we'll close out more.
We'll do another one of these.
There's usually some kind of someone who wants to take away, typically someone in the legal area that wants to attack your business. Last year, we spoke very much about accessibility online. That was one of the big trends that we were looking at, as attorneys were going out there and they were suing people because the websites weren't accessible. And if you're interested in that, you could read a lot about that on our website. This year, the area that I'm like very focused on and looking at is, we know that is this whole privacy area. So a lot of areas, California has led the way in the United States with the CCPA laws, which are these statewide laws, which what kind of data can you collect? What kind of data can you share? And in many ways, I agree with that. We shouldn't be spamming people per se, and we shouldn't be taking lists that we collect and selling them to others. All of that is actually like makes a lot of sense. And in fact, Europe was the first that came out with the GDPR, which is a privacy act. And so one of the areas I just want to say is I think that those California laws are going to be more prevalent across the country. So you're going to see whatever starts in California often then moves, certainly on the digital side, moves across the country as people get more and more concerned about their privacy. And so this has had a big impact. and where it impacts is on cookies. So some of you may or may not be aware of this, but really what cookies are important for marketers in that we know who we're targeting and where they are in the funnel. So has this person been to your website before? What kind of pages did they interact with? What kind of information did they look at? This all allows us to go back and target someone in a much more effective way, which means that you get the right ads at the right time to the right people, which, I mean, as marketers, we really love that.
Yeah, and to clarify, I just want to clarify on that, because this is, I think, a misconception. And I remember hearing this, and I was just kind of hand to forehead when Zuckerberg they were asking about advertising in front of Congress. And when we say, like, there's a cookie and we can target you, it's completely based off what you're doing, not who you are. So it's not like if Bernard May went to a site, I can't then go into my system and go, oh, cool, Bernard May, and I can see exactly who they are and their history. It's not that. You're literally like a data string of numbers that we can go, okay, this data string of numbers looked at this, and now we're going to retarget them that way. So I'm just putting a few things. I don't want anyone to think like we can actually just collect data at a deep level, unless you provide it. If you fill out a form, that's more organic. You've freely given that information. But yeah, just cookie data. I just want to make sure that was clear, but please continue.
And this is where legislators, I think many of them don't understand exactly what you said, Matt. They don't understand what these cookies do. They just know that data is being collected on visitors to a website, and somehow they know, and really they know, we know a lot about individuals because there's overlaid data, like we know device information. We do know kind of demographic and psychographic and all sorts of other information that gets overlaid, which is very helpful from a marketing perspective. So this is something that's a concern for many of the big companies out there. And obviously we use their systems, the Googles, the Bings, Instagram, Facebook, et cetera. Everyone has been depending on cookies. Cookies are crumbling. Cookies are going away. Cookies are no longer going to be available in many areas, like in Europe already. The restrictions are there. You've seen, I'm sure all of our listeners have seen all of these websites where it pops up and says, we are tracking cookies, which is actually interesting because you always accept that because you want to go onto the website and use it. So it's kind of useless in many ways, because I think that how many people have actually said, oh, I'm not going to actually go to this website or allow them to track cookies. Maybe there are some people out there that do that. But I think Apple's very much in this whole area. There are two camps. There's Google that's collecting all this information on you, and Facebook, every stroke of the keyboard, which is kind of a little concerning. And then there's Apple that's trying to, play on the other side and say, privacy is really, really important and we don't track anything. And so those two camps, it just does make it a little bit more difficult. I think what's going to happen, and this is I think the prediction is pretty well baked, is that machine learning is going to be able to do much of what the cookies were doing. And it's going to become more and more sophisticated, and it's going to really track activity and device usage and things like that to come up with the same results that the cookie did. But there's definitely something that is disappearing. And I just want to say to some of our listeners, depending on where you are, for instance, if you're in California, you need to make sure that if you have, I think it's over 100 employees and you have over $10 million in revenue, maybe it's $20 million. I will put that in the show notes. You need to have those kinds of warnings on your website to explain that you are tracking cookies. Otherwise, you could be exposing yourself to, litigious,
some sort of,
people out there that are, just want to take away, they just want to take advantage of businesses and find ways to sue them for everything. So that's just a caution amongst all the opportunities. But I think going into 2021, as we wrap up, 2021 is going to be an amazing year. E-commerce is never going to be the same. One of the areas that they talked about a lot was these boomers that didn't come online to buy and shop. And they have grown, that sector of the market has grown a lot online, as they have been fearful to go into stores. I think that the curbside pickup, these things, who'd ever heard of curbside pickup until now? Now it's, and home delivery, of course, Amazon pioneered this. This has become so much of a big thing. This is going to be massive as we go into 2021. People, really figuring out those many channels that they can market to, and taking advantage of the data, the AI and machine learning, so that you can actually feed that back in to make a better model. And then finally, just being careful to not fall into any traps, because there are those lawyers out there with the privacy concerns. Matt, anything else you want to wrap up with as we...
just with, and this is, was not the intent, but even what Bernard's, discussing here, which, if you're not aware, Google's going to, I think in the next 12 months, they're going to phase out cookies completely. Maybe 11, maybe 13 months. But this again feeds into why it's so important to have an omni-channel strategy and to focus on the user experience and the customer experience. So, because if cookies go away, you're going to need to provide something better for them to want to interact with you. So that's why it's important to start focusing on it now, so you can benefit from it as 2021 rolls in and steams through.
Well, thank you so much, Matt Erickson, for joining me again and having this great conversation. This was just the tip of the iceberg. We have this incredible 2021 trends ebook that is coming out, and we'll be publishing that on our website very shortly. So please check out for that, download that, which will have details by different channels. So we'll have trends for PPC, for local search, for Amazon, for conversion, you name it, we have it in there. That'll help you get that edge to really have those digital breakthroughs as we go into 2021. We also realize that you may need some help as you plan going into the new year. We mentioned that framework that we have at National Positions, which is available to all of our clients and anyone else that's out there listening that would like to get some help using a very kind of systematic way of handling their marketing or figuring out how to put their dollars into their digital marketing going in 2021. I'm super psyched. I can't wait for the new year. I think for us, this is just
it's going to be
really
very, very interesting. This 2021 is going to be very, very interesting because, again, things aren't going back. It's going to be something new, and we just need to look at the silver linings and move forward with that. But yes, the book will be available very soon. And with everything Bernard's talking about, if you are not sure where to start, you can just send an email to marketing@nationalpositions.com, marketing@nationalpositions.com. That'll go directly to me, and you can throw any questions you want, and anything we have, I can send you, or I can connect you with Bernard. And happy to, at least just to start scratching the surface and get ready for 2021. You don't want to, don't let it get here and then start before, for sure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our Digital Breakthroughs podcast. And again, thanks, Matt, for joining today.
Always.
And everyone, wishing all of our listeners a very successful 2021 and lots of profits, lots of growth on their online business. Thank you for listening.
Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone.
You've been listening to Digital Breakthroughs, featuring experts in all the areas of cutting-edge digital marketing. Digital Breakthroughs is hosted by Bernard May, CEO of leading social media and digital marketing agency, National Positions, located online at nationalpositions.com.